I came back. Any Larson Church?
Okay, boys, Bible.
You're all right there, Anton.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if you were
I
paying
know.
attention. I mean, my little niece was laying there in the crib in a bassinet, and she said, she went. I said, yeah, I know what you're doing. And then she started crying. It's like I called her dad. I said, hey, she needs changed.
What's name?
No. 40 years since I changed a diaper, and I ain't starting back up.
Howard.
Yes, I am a coward. Heavenly Father, we welcome you into this house, and your Holy Spirit dwell amongst us, that we may have understanding of your word, and how it applied then, and how it applies now. We ask that you be with us, be with Jerry as he brings a lesson. We ask these things in Jesus' name. So, where we're at before is that God chose Moses to speak on his behalf, because for God to speak, it scares people. We talked about before about Samuel used to come into the when Samuel would show up, he said it was either feast or famine, and everyone was scared. If Samuel shows up, it's either really, really good news, or really, really bad news. Because he was a spokesperson for God, as they call them prophets. Moses was chosen by God to speak on his behalf. He chose Moses to go back to Egypt to speak on behalf, to let his people go, and he performed the miracles through Moses to convince Pharaoh to let him go. And today, even today, there's been speculation as to exactly the path that Moses and the Israelites took. I saw a thing on TV this morning where they found wrapped in coral at the bottom of the Red Sea, chariots, wheels, and horse bones and stuff like that. They were wrapped in coral. And I don't know how true it is. AI today, who knows? But there's many scientists have said, well, the Red Sea, that's just too deep. There's no way they could have passed through the Red Sea. Maybe they passed on the edge of it. And he said, well, no, maybe it was the Sea of Reeds. Sea of Reeds is shallow.
What chapter?
19, 1 and 20.
Thank you.
But scientists today, rather than just admit, that the Bible has validity in it, they just try to prove it wrong. Never have they been able to do it today.
Sure.
So, in many cases, they look in the Bible to find archaeological facts. So, when they can't find the answer to what happened, like Sodom and Gomorrah, God said he was going to wipe it from the face of the earth. And they still think they can find remnants of Sodom and Gomorrah, but all they find is brimstone where they believe it to be.
Father Dr. Albright is considered father of American archaeology, biblical archaeology. Actually used to be in Testament as a guidebook in his archaeology. He's one of the greatest archaeologists on America. The Bible is used as a guidebook.
We're saying that Moses was the spokesperson for God. Like I said, he chose to speak to Moses, right? And then Moses spoke to the people. They could relate to people one-on-one.
Did Aaron and Moses talk to him for a while?
Well, Aaron was at first. Moses had the one song that Casting Crowns has that he spoke. Moses had stage fright.
Yeah, so he had wasn't his brother? Yeah, it was his brother.
Well, as I used to say in Bible study, I said, he goes, Moses goes, man, I'm talking. He goes, well, take your brother Aaron. He never shuts up. The guy never stops talking. So, but when he got in front of Pharaoh, Aaron didn't say anything. Moses did all the talking. Okay? Aaron was like the right-hand handyman.
Just in case, guy.
He handed the magician the cape. He handed him his wand. Here's your top hat.
You know what it was? Aaron was in training.
Yeah.
God used it for training. Aaron would be the first great high priest. And then all the priests would come through his line. So God was training him.
He said he had no problem talking to people, but he had a problem when he came in front of Pharaoh, and he had a problem talking in front of God. But Moses, after he'd been around God so many times, God spoke to him so many times, he said, hold up your staff, and I'll bring the waters back. I don't know about you, but I think the fact that I put my staff over a rock and water comes out, that would have been enough for me. What that means, that would have been overkill to see waters part of the back. And they said that the Israelite people crossed over on dry land, but when the Egyptians came behind them, it was what? Now, I don't know, that's pretty much a miraculous thing in itself. But God said that I'm your Lord, your God, and brought you out of Egypt, the land of slavery. He tells them, I did all of this for you. And what I want you to do is, I told Moses, he goes, I want you to go down, and I want you to tell the people, because, as I said, there's many skeptics, right? Probably people going, Jesus, come on up here, come back down, tell them God told them. They don't see no proof, so God's going to show them proof. He's going to tell the people, he goes, my essence is on this mountain, and you will not come close to the base of it, okay? Or you'll die. You can't get that close to God without and live, okay? He tells people, prepare yourself because I'm going to show myself to you on the mountain. And then cloud came down on the mountain with thunder shores, and the people were scared. Okay, Moses says, look, God's come to talk to you. He wants you to prove to you that he's been talking to me. He's going to show you proof that you require so that you can see that he's real. Okay? It's impossible to see God. I look at it as God is so big and so great, right? It's impossible to see all of that at once. It's like when you walk in fog. Fog's all around you, but you can't really see the fog. You can't grasp a hold of it, right? But it's there. You can feel it. So he went up, said on the morning of the third day there was thunder and lightning, a thick cloud over the mountain, and a loud trumpet blast, and everyone in the camp trembled. And Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God. And they stood at the foot of the mountain, and Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord ascended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from the furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. And the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, and Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. So, like I said, I believe there's always skeptics in every crowd. There's always somebody, like Jerry mentioned last Sunday, if he said, if I went and spoke to God, would you believe me? Okay, well, Moses telling him that I spoke to God, they probably didn't believe him. Even the people who knew him. Now, Aaron would believe him. Aaron was in the front row seat and witnessed, pretty much that he's, either Moses is just the greatest magician in the world, right? Or he actually saying what he's just saying is true. So Moses and Aaron, okay. So it said, Lord descended on top of Mount Sinai, and Moses called to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up. Yeah, he called Moses to the top of the mountain. Moses went up. The Lord said to him, go down and warn the people that do not force their way to see the Lord. And many of them perish. And even the priests who approach the Lord and consecrate themselves, but the Lord will break out against them. So he had rituals he had to do, and it was, you can never be clean enough to be in front of God, but you can make it a point where you can get clean enough to get to the edge point. But he was telling them, he said, look, the priest was probably thinking, I'm a priest. Why can't I go? We have congressmen and senators that are like that. Oh, you're going to go speak in peace? How come I don't get to go? I'm a congressman. To me, you're just another person elected into a seat to hold the people hostage. So, anyways, Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up on Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us and put limits around the mountain and set us apart as holy. Now, this is the part that cracks me up, right? God never forgets anything, right? Except for, if you ask him to forgive you a sin, he casts it into the sea of, yeah. So he doesn't remember the sin that he forgives you for. But as far as, if he tells you something, you have to remind him what he said. And Moses doing that, God, you can't do that, God. He told us we couldn't come up on the mountain. You said it as holy.
It's bold.
Yeah.
And God wasn't displeased.
No. Yeah. I think he put it as a point where you remembered what I said.
He made it very pleased with him.
So Moses went down and told the people when God spoke to all these, that God spoke all these words. Now, he tells them that I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, and you should have no other gods before me. And why would you want any other thing else? I mean, you either have the creator, the original, why would you want a fax copy?
Didn't they bring other people with them too? Didn't they have slaves from Egypt and all that was coming with them? Maybe they didn't actually.
Well, this is a revelation. I mean, Like we pointed out last week about if you grow up learning a certain way, and they learned that way.
That's probably why I said.
God reveals himself to them. Here's this God talking to them, right? He tells them, I am the Lord thy God who created everything, right? And I brought you out of Egypt. Don't have any other gods before me. So everything else you had that you thought was a God, he's telling you, get rid of it. Throw it away. I mean, it ain't like, somebody goes, hey, look, this is my God, and there's a booming voice behind them saying, that's not a God, that's a stone, throw it away. It's gone, Don't make yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven or above or on the earth, beneath or in the waters below. You should not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation to those who hate me. So, if you don't believe me, the way of punishment is also not doing anything to help you.
We'll take your firstborn. He did that.
He did that, but he also told me he was going to do it.
Yeah. They didn't believe me. They didn't.
But, what was it? David said when his firstborn is born as a Sheba, he moaned and mourned and tore his cloak, put ashes on it, until when he woke up, they said, hey, your son's dead. And they didn't even tell him. Once he said, my son's dead, he goes, oh. He went about his way. He goes, I tried to convince God to do it otherwise, but I will see him again in heaven. Okay? So, when you say that he takes things from you, he gives you things too. But, it's heartbreaking to lose something that's precious to you. But, knowing that you'll see it again in heaven is a positive thing.
He used it as punishment too in Egypt. Like at the end there, that's what he did to the Pharaoh, right?
He was
took
trying to
all
make
the firstborn. All the
Egypt.
firstborn.
But he did what he had to do to move
Human
God.
and beast.
Yeah.
He did what he had to do to move Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah,
Okay?
so that he would let them go.
He gets what he wants. It's not, he does it all the time that way. I'm asking you a question now. How moving would it have been for you if somebody throws a staff down, or if he turns the river to blood, or frogs and everything confess sin? There were 7 plagues? The firstborn dying was the last?
9, 10.
Okay. But it took that many moving things where Pharaoh wasn't affected. And he kept saying, I don't believe that. He was very unmoving, unbelieving.
Jesus raised Lazarus after 4 days of death, and there are some that didn't believe.
Yeah.
Miracles aren't going to convince everybody. In our sophisticated age, we'll find an explanation for it.
A poisonous snake on the island of Malta, when Paul was shipwrecked, poisonous snake came out and bit him. And he just went like this and threw it off, and nothing happened to him. They thought he was a god. And he told them, no, don't worship me. I'm not a god. I am the spokesperson for the one true living God. So, like I said, it's when God performs miracles through you, or any works, here they are standing before these people. He took, and the firstborn was gone, right? But he told the Israelites what to do to keep them there, their firstborn being dead. The animals died too.
Yeah.
So when the angel of death passed through, like I said, there was, how much do you have to push somebody to get them to do what you want them to do, to convince them that,
Well, he kind of threw it off too, like whenever I'm just talking about when they left Egypt, like the first couple of things that he tried to do, the Pharaoh had like magicians, stuff, and they could actually, they replayed some of the stuff. They could make some of the stuff happen.
they
And he
replayed.
just went so far to where they couldn't do it, they couldn't explain it.
Well, he went after their gods, okay? When Aaron threw the staff down and turned into a snake, their magicians threw their staff down, but Moses' staff, or Aaron's staff was a ton. It devoured all 3 of them. And I used to make it sound, if all 3 are 6-foot snakes, that'd be like 24 feet long, or it'd be like this big around. It'd be like a tree trunk after that.
Snakes are a delicacy, I'm told. So.
Wouldn't be an Atkins diet, that's for sure. But they were able to do that one, but when they turned the water to blood, they tried to switch back, couldn't do it.
But the Lord he was like kind of merciful to him, because like he let, like, the Pharaoh would tell Moses, and Moses would go back and talk about it, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll stop it now, as long as he lets you go. So he played the game for,
Yeah.
he did, he played the game for a while.
Yeah, he was persuasive. He said, look,
He
this
had
is gonna happen.
chance.
This is gonna happen. And Moses, or Pharaoh, you're right. He said, I've had enough of this. I'll let your people go. Just tell your God to stop doing this stuff. And he goes, okay. And he stopped it. But what does he do right after that? No, they're not going anywhere.
Fish or cut bait.
As I said, Moses was the spokesperson for God. And with every spokesperson, you're going to have the skeptics. And in this case, God is coming down and he's telling them, he says, look, this is what I want. I don't want any images. Don't make anything. He did that for the other gods. I am the one true God. Jesus told him, he says, the woman at the well, she goes, well, the Jews say you have to worship on that mountain. And she goes, we worship on this mountain. He's right. He goes, God's spirit. He goes, there's the time coming, and now is here, then you will worship God in the spirit. Both that mountain and this mountain. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you worship God, he's everywhere. All the time. So it doesn't matter where you worship. God is spirit. He's everywhere. Like I said, like the fog. When the fog rolls in, it's everywhere.
Amen.
So, and not like the movie.
Yeah.
Because there were testicle aliens in some of them. So, you should say, you shall not misuse your one like God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless if you misuse his name. Now, let me ask you a question now. Do you want people to respect you? Would you expect somebody that you know to respect you to badmouth you? I mean, God says,
I would
hey,
expect it to happen, but it's not like it makes me happy, I don't like it. But
God don't like it either. God don't like it either. He says, I'm the Lord God, all right? And you tell me you love me, and then you badmouth me? Which face are you talking to me with? So he says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. And on it you shall not do any work, neither you, your son, your daughter, nor your male or female servants, your animals, or any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the seas, and all that's in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy. I think we got away from this in the United States. It used to be nobody worked on Sunday. And now, because of they make more money. So God
we have
knows.
family that are Mormons and they don't do anything. They won't even go and spend money on Sunday.
God
They've
said that's
asked
your
me
day
to
of
go
rest.
buy them stuff on
He doesn't want you to work
Is that
yourself.
right?
Chick- Chick-fil-A closes on Sunday.
He doesn't want you to work yourself to death.
Yeah.
That's his. So
Isn't it about the
Yeah,
same?
it is, that's what I'm thinking too. If they ask you to buy it, they might as well do it themselves.
Right.
So, but God's telling you, he goes, look, I rested. I only worked 6 days. Why do you need to work 7?
Pay bills. Right.
You should only have to work 6. I work 5. And the other reason for the Sabbath day is to keep it holy. Is we use our seventh, the 7th, or the Sunday, and some use the Saturday. Okay, Sunday is considered the first day of the week, right? But
You need to remember the Sabbath in the New Testament. But the Ten Commandments, Sabbath is the only one that they are not commanded to keep. The Christians are not commanded to keep. The other ones are. They're in the New Testament, one shape or another. Sabbath, if you turn to Hebrews 4, you see the Sabbath has very deep significance. It's not a day of the week any longer. It's a way of life. You enter, in fact, right in Hebrews says there yet remaineth a Sabbath rest for the people of God. When Adam and Eve were created the 6th day, they lived into the 7th day. They entered God's rest. They were complete within his will. They sinned and they left God's rest. Christians were told that there yet remains that Sabbath rest for us. And so there's a state of spiritual existence, relationship with Christ. It's no longer a day of the week. Okay?
so I see this God telling them not to work their life away.
Well, here, yes.
Yeah.
But remember, they're under law. The Christian's not under law, he's under grace. Okay? And Paul is very strong in that, Romans and Galatians.
but I say it still applies. I mean, God doesn't want you to work your life.
Oh, yes, the principle does
Yeah.
apply, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way I see it here. So I see it as that God said, look, I worked for 6 days, I took the seventh day off. I didn't work for 7 days. I mean, I could have made the week 14 days, right? Because God created time and seasons and everything for humans. It didn't exist until God created.
Amen.
He made the seasons so that we could look at the sky, see that there's snow about to fall, and get no crops this winter. But we know how long the snow's supposed to last by time frames that you can start planting your crops. Farmers live by the almanac, and they live by the seasons, so they know when to plant crops, they know when to harvest the crops, they know when to do each step when they're doing these things. And they don't work really 7 days a week, but they take their rest time. And as Jesus pointed out, when he healed the guy in the synagogue during the Sabbath, and they were criticizing him, and he said, how many of you, if you have a sheep that wanders off on the Sabbath and falls in a hole, isn't going to go look for it and do work and get it out of the hole? So, I mean, the fact that God's performing, doing these things on the Sabbath to make your life easier isn't considered work. It's considered, like nicety. It's like, do you go out on the seventh if you're doing the charity work? Do you not go to the food banks and help out with giving out food and soup kits, soup lines, whatever they call them? Do you not work in a food bank to help people that are less fortunate and can't have food because it's your Sabbath? No, that's not considered work. To some people, they might consider it work. A lot of people don't get paid for that. Now, he also tells them that you should honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Be respectful of your mother and father. And one of the things I saw, it says, if you have failure to respect your mother and father, how can you respect your father in heaven? I don't know how that works in that, but it made a lot of sense. Some people say, well, I didn't have an experience.
You respect them more
Yeah.
than you can.
Yeah.
Or just not disrespect.
In the military, they say that you got to follow every order given, unless it's an unlawful order.
We determine it's not lawful.
Yeah, I mean, you got to fight the battle after the battle. Because if you tell him, like, if he says, "Go shoot that guy in the head," you say no, he's going to get you for disobeying a direct order. But when you go above his head, and they say, "Well, what do you ask you to do?" You tell him, you go, "Hey, you're an idiot. You got to shoot somebody in the head because you told him to." But it's fighting the battle after the battle. He also says, you shall not commit murder. All right? Don't take the life of somebody else. It's not your life to take. You may not be angry or be happy with the person. And you might think, if that person's existence was not in front of me, I'd be a happier person. But they tell you that as soon as you get somebody out of your head, the more room you have for yourself and God. Because if you let them in your head, they take up too much space. And they're living rent-free. Do not commit adultery. God said before, he says, there's one man, one woman, joined under heaven. I guess the idea, they say that, I was watching some videos, and they said that Scripture tells us that he took the rib from a man. But they say that you can read it differently and say that he actually took half of Adam and made Eve. So he took half of what he already created, right? Not just a rib, but in essence, he made Adam half and Eve half and made two bodies, which meaning that the original bodies were existing in two forms, right? Which is what they say, that a man leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife, right? It makes him whole again. So he's missing that half. It's like you got a false half on you, and then when you meet the other person in your life to be joined with, they have that other original half to you. And when you join them, you used to say that with ribs. They said a woman has one more rib than a man, so that when they're joined together, it's all connected. There's another joke to that too. When Adam said to God, he goes, "I want a woman that's really obedient, does everything I say, cooks my meals, make sure the house is clean." And he says,
Whoa, watch out,
he
man.
says,
You're
all right.
sitting too close, okay?
he says, all right, but God
What
says to
another
Adam,
word
he goes,
for
it's
it?
gonna cost you an arm and a leg. He goes, what can I get for a rib? So,
Anthony, you're a brave man or a foolish man, I'm not sure which.
I'm a little bit of both sometimes.
Gotcha, brother.
More foolish than brave.
he says, do not steal. Now, these are all, I call the first 10 commandments the moral commandments, right? Because it's, to me, people go, it's like common sense. It says, do not steal. Would you want someone to steal something that you worked hard to get? You know, work hard to get that car, work hard to get the house the way you want it, and somebody comes in and takes all your nice ornaments, your jewelry, because it's easier for them to walk in and steal it. But they wouldn't want you to steal it from them. Okay?
Gotta go with the road.
Yeah.
But how do we define stealing today? We think nothing is stealing time from the employer, or doing less than what we're supposed to do. I knew a Salvation Army officer, he was a divisional financial secretary, very high up in the ladder. He'd go to conferences and his free pens, they weren't taken, he just grabbed them all up, took them with
I had
him.
an aunt
That way
that
his
did that.
department didn't have to buy any pens back at headquarters.
I had an aunt,
He didn't define that as stealing.
my Aunt Kate used to go to Ponderosa, or she'd go to like King's, and she would get a doggy bag. She'd go up to the buffet, and those little wings, and pack that thing full. And then she'd put it in her purse. And then she'd go to the, like this, it was funny because she used to go to like the perfume sample stations, like Kmart had them in Davis Way. And you'd see them going like this, and like, well, you could tell where she was at, no matter where you're at in the store. Because you could smell that stuff everywhere. And that Chanel and Charlie and all them other ones mixed together.
Oh,
Yeah, she was, I love my aunt.
so if we got an allergy, that would be bad. Whew.
If you didn't shower, you didn't care. And my mom used to say, she was like, I go, Mom, you think you got enough perfume? She goes, don't smell me, not them. So, don't give false testimony against your neighbor. Now, they used to say to Christ, he'd say, well, who is my neighbor? And he said, well, let's say there's a guy going down the road, and he gets mugged, and he's left for death, right? And you see a priest coming down, and they cross to the other side of the road. They keep going, like they didn't save him. Okay, then a good Samaritan comes along. Now, the Samaritans were Jews, but they were considered like dirty. You know, they weren't part of the Jewish crowd here, right? They were their own people, right? And he comes along, and he picks the guy up, person up, puts him on his donkey, takes him to the inn, and he gets some medical attention, and he gives money to the guy. He says, here, take care of him, I'll be back through, and if it costs any more, I'll make it right. So Christ says, well, who was his neighbor? Well, his neighbor is anybody you help, right? He also tells them that do not say, hey, God be with you. I know you're hungry, God be with you. That doesn't help them. It doesn't feed them. If you give them food when they're hungry, if they're having trouble with a coat, you can afford to buy them a coat, buy them a coat. And it'll keep them warm, you know. Blankets. You know, a lot of times you see, like, they hear about the Salvation Army takes blankets out. The Salvation Army, I've heard about taking them out into the homeless. A blanket, even if you can't make it off the street, keep you warm, possibly keep you from freezing. So, it's people you help. So, do not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. You know, keeping up with the Joneses, right? You're jealous of how well they're doing in their house, so you do yours better. Now, I don't play that game because I'm not very good at it. I get bored, you know. Down at work, the guys used to do the, you know, oh, I spilled water on you. The guy would come back with a bucket of water. He goes, oh, I spilled water on you. And then he'd come back with a thermos, or a thing full of water. And he'd go, oh, I spilled water on you. But it never gets, there's no up to it. Because next thing you know, you got a bucket loader with water in it. Because, oops, I spilled water on you. You know, it's a game that never ends. So if they spill water on me, I'm like, oh, all right. You know, it doesn't bother you, it does. But I'm not going to play your games. I don't play well with others. That's why I'm by myself a lot of times. I don't even play well with games. You know, I lose too many times. So I played, when I was in the military, I played chess with this guy, and he goes, you don't mind losing? I said, you need somebody to play with you, don't you? As long as you don't cheat. I Said, I learned, you win, I learned how to lose way better, faster each time. I'm not an idiot for chess, I just don't know all the moves, I can't go. As soon as the game starts and I move a pawn out and go, you lost. How do you know?
Just having fun out of it, huh?
Yeah, I'd play it out. So when the people saw the thunder and lightning, heard the trumpet and smoke in the mountain, they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance. And who wouldn't? If you see thunder and lightning and the mountain shaking, I'm backing up. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe things going to fall apart. I don't want a landslide on me. So then they said to Moses, hey, speak to us. You yourself will listen. But you have to have God not speak to us or we'll die. Can't handle that. So we're going to listen to you. You go talk to God, right? And then you tell us what he said. Now, what I've discovered with people is it doesn't matter how many times you tell Moses to go talk to God and we'll listen to what you said. There's still going to be somebody that goes, he didn't go talk to God. It's going to be the one person in the crowd that defies everything. And later on in the things, we'll find out that God fixes that. Okay? So he said to the people, don't be afraid. God has come to test you. He said, the fear of God will be with you and keep you from sin. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom, right? He said, you want to be smarter? Fear of God. Now, when I was a kid, I mean, the paddling came so frequently sometimes that you just expected it. But for the most part, you behave yourself. They said, stay in the yard, stay in the yard. So eat all your vegetables. I didn't like vegetables then, but I ate all my vegetables. My mom told me once, she goes, you eat all them peas, or you're not getting up until you eat them all. I fell asleep on the bench because I did not like peas.
I would eat before.
Yeah, well, I eat anything now. I don't know what it was, just a trial thing. But when you make rules for your children, you want them to listen and obey them. Okay? And that's God's given you. When he's telling these people, he says, look, don't be afraid of me, respect me. I make these rules for a reason that make you better. I mean, do you think you know better than God? Maybe you do, maybe you think you do, maybe you think you don't. But then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites this, you have seen for yourself that I speak to you from heaven. Don't make any gods to be alongside me, and you make your gods of silver or gold. Okay? Now, he still reiterates this because he knows the old behaviors. And one of the things that they teach you, if you go through, like if you're an AA or if you're an NA or any other ones, is that whenever you fall, son, you're falling short, old behavior is comfortable behavior, and you want to fall back to it because it's something you're comfortable with. God's telling them, don't go back to that old behavior, right? Fear me, listen to me. I don't want any other objects in there. You're saying, look, well, I got a God of wheat to go along with you. Because there is no other God but me. You don't have a God of wheat. You got a piece of wood or a stone that you're looking at and saying, bring my harvest in good. It doesn't work that way. But he says, make an altar of earth for me and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your sheep, goats, and cattle, and wherever I cause my name to be honored. I will come to you and bless you. If you make an altar of stones for me, do not dress it with dressed stones, gems, jewels, stuff like that. He wants it to be a plain. Build with dirt, no cement, no rebar. You see today when people build their homes, they make them look elaborate, fancy. They put stones out there. I saw on one guy on YouTube video, he put metal things down and put epoxy in it, so it looks like there's squirrels on the thing. God doesn't want that. He wants plain and simple. He tells them, no dressed stones, for you will defile it if you use a tool on it. So he wants to play, like I say, basic. Pile the dirt up, set the fire on top of it. That's good for him. He says, these are the laws you are to set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he's to serve you for 6 years, but on the 7th year, he shall go free without paying anything. Now he's telling these people, because now you were in slavery, you saw how it worked, this is the way it's supposed to work. Okay? Somebody owes you money, they pay that debt back to you, they have 6 years to pay it back. Okay? And I guess I was looking at this, so you don't swindle the guy going, all with interest rates compounded annually or daily, And you see the loan sharks, they tell me, you borrow 100,000, you owe me 150,000, 2 days from now. You get the interest rates in the bank, you can't do that. So he's like, the way I see this is that he's telling the Hebrew people, if somebody owes you money, they're to work for you 6 years. And if for some reason you can't pay it back in 6 years, forget that, let it go. Okay? But he also tells him if he comes alone, he's to go free alone. But if he has a wife when he comes, then she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife, if he meets his wife, who's one of his slaves, while you're there, you can go, she can't. If she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to the master, and over the man shall go free. But if the servant declares that I love my master and my wife and children and do not want to go free, then his master must take him before the judges, and should take him to the door or a doorpost, pierce his ear with an awl, then he will be his servant for life. So he's choosing to live the servant's lifestyle because he doesn't want to be separated from his wife and his kids. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So those are the master's kids that are with him, what?
If master owns everything. If you have a slave,
So it's a slave.
it's,
So he wants to live with his wife and his kids to his master.
no,
No, the kids belong to him.
it's
The kids belong to the master because the woman, the mother belongs to him.
But he can just keep his wife.
well, anyway, he can keep his wife is to stay with her, and for that he
The
has.
master keeps the wife, but he
Yep.
can leave.
But if he chooses not to leave, stay with his wife and kids, he must go before the judges so they can say, look, this guy's a free man, right? But he wishes to remain with the servants I have, right? So he takes an awl, he pierces his ear. So when people see him, they say, oh, he chose a life, what they call fortitude, I guess, chose a life of fortitude, so he can be with his wife and his kids, right?
It's a picture of a Christian in the New Testament. Paul, Peter, James, I think Jude, writers of the New Testament, started some of their letters out, giving their name and saying, we are the servant. The Greek word doulos means slave. They're the willing slave. And so it's a slavery of willingness. We submit to Christ. We willingly acknowledge him as Lord and Master. But realize too that the one who does that is also a child of God. Okay? At the cross, when we accept Christ, that gives us sonship, so to speak. We become children of God, but we're also his servants. But that law of the indentured servant, some would call it, is a picture of the Christian. Yes, I am the slave of Christ, but I'm a willing slave. God doesn't force anybody to enter into covenant with him.
But the master itself is just an Israelite that owns somebody.
He owns
Right.
somebody because
So what I'm saying is, I understand what you're trying to make it sound like, yeah, those people are serving God, but really I mean, it's not a prophet at that point, right? It's just an Israelite who owns them.
Yeah.
And he's like giving himself to that man. I understand what you're saying. When he does that, he is being welcomed into God, but why couldn't he be free to do that?
It could be.
again,
Well,
the picture.
this is,
But he wants to be with his family.
right, with this illustration here, he's telling him, he said, look, if the guy wants to be with his wife and kids, the only way he can do it is to go back into that slave status, so he can stay with his wife and kids. He can leave. He can leave at any time. All right? And you can leave, I mean, you can say, well, I don't want to be a servant of God anymore. I don't know why you want to do that. Because God blesses. And if you're not with God, you don't give up them blessings. I mean, I don't know how to put it into words, as to say that, why would you want to give up, the grace and the everything that comes with worshiping God. Some people say, well, it's boring. I can't go drinking. I can't go smoking. I can't go womanizing. All those things are bad for you, right? And God tells you not to do them, because they're not good for you.
I just don't understand, like, you're gonna let the man go, but you have to keep the woman.
Yeah, you're looking at it as it is in print here.
Yeah.
And what
I understand.
Dennis is doing, he's shown a New Testament picture from them. But historically, and that's how you're looking at it, there were no courts of bankruptcy back then. Okay? Today, if I owe, I can go to court and get it forgiven, or however you put it. Back then, he didn't. If I'm a Hebrew, and he is, and I owe him money, then I have to pay that somehow. And so what I may do is forfeit my land, but that's not enough. So I forfeit myself to pay my debt. Debts had to be paid back then. You couldn't get out of it. And so here I am, I'm your slave, and I fall in love with this lady that's your slave. She's probably not even an Israelite.
Yeah.
Because they can only keep, a Jew can only keep a fellow Jew slave for 6 years. You haven't let them go, no matter what the debt was. So, I have children by his slave, who's a foreigner. The law did not apply. This law, many of the laws did. This law did not apply to foreigners. And so I entered that relationship with his slave woman, realizing that, he's going to let me go in a few years, but my beloved, my children by her are not going to go free. I can purchase them, but I'm just saying because I couldn't pay my debt, so how am I going to purchase them?
But is she gonna be let go after so long after she
No,
pays her
not,
debt?
No,
if she's Jewish, yes.
Yeah,
But not
slavery-
if she's not.
That's what I mean. So
Yes.
why is it, well, I just understand.
well, here are the
The
slaves.
man would be like, yeah,
Okay,
Okay.
well, put it this way.
I don't get
The
that.
Mosaic Law, you can actually download some of the ancient laws, okay, like Hammurabi, Eshkol, and others.
And they're saying God said this, right?
Okay, but
He's
compare,
giving rules to the people.
Right. These are the
God
rules.
meets us where we're,
Ten Commandments.
okay, God meets us where we're at. Now, that's not only singularly, but it's also
The
on,
way the world was at that time. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. You gotta,
so this is head
you
and
gotta play
shoulders
the
above the
game.
other
So
laws.
he's actually playing a game. He's playing a game with the way that they live their life and trying to make them all follow him. I understand.
Well,
It's just,
Yeah, it seems strange to us.
it is. It's weird.
their other way of living as slaves, they couldn't get let go.
Look, now, if you owe me money, I can't take you as a slave at this day and age. But I could have back then, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
We're
my
studying
lady,
this
So we're
now.
living in a different world now.
oh, yeah.
Everything changes in time.
Yeah, much different.
It changes in time. For example, here they had to do animal sacrifices, right? But we have Christ that intervenes for us in that aspect. We don't have to do animal sacrifice.
He was-
Animal blood is not as pure as Christ. Okay? And the pure blood is what washes away your sin. That's the atonement. Okay? So, I mean, they used to use the blood and would run over the altar, right? And then the meat and stuff got used for other things. But God's given them rules. Like I said, they lived in Egypt for a long time. Okay? And the way they got that way, back up a little bit, is after a while, see, the first time they were there was with Joseph, right? He was the number one person to Pharaoh.
Yeah,
Right,
because
brothers
then
to the
didn't his brothers sell him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
They sold him too. Yeah, and then his dad, which was it Abraham?
Jacob,
Yeah, Jacob.
Abraham's grandson.
Yes, Isaac. Was it Isaac's son?
No, Isaac was
Who was-
Abraham. It's Abraham,
his dad?
Isaac, and then Jacob. Jacob was his dad.
Yes, because he brought him to Egypt.
Yeah.
When he found, because his brothers came to buy food because he knew about the
Well,
family.
they told his brothers
Yeah.
told their dad that he was dead.
Yeah, they sold him, but then they brought back a cloak that
Yeah.
or a sheet that was all bloody, and that's what he thought an animal killed.
They lied.
But yeah,
Nice brother.
but with Joseph, he was sold into slavery, and God blessed him so well that he went from what was he with the Potiphar's wife, Potiphar, right? He bought him out of slavery, right? And he
And he
did so well for
yeah.
Potiphar that his wife tried to take him and have her away with him. And he ran. She made up a lie. He got cast into a prison. And while he was in the prison, he ended up being in charge of the other prisoners. Okay?
And they had on his shoulders.
And while he was in prison, the baker and the royal cupbearer were put in jail, right? And they had dreams.
And he told him what they
He
meant.
told them what the dreams meant. And they came true, right?
Yeah, and then the cupbearer, so he goes up and he's hanging out with the prophet, right? But he told him, he's like, can you tell him about me? Like, tell him that I'm in your
Yeah.
home. He didn't.
No, he
No.
didn't.
Until he come up with
3
like, I had
years.
this dream and I can't figure it out. And he's like, oh, I know a guy.
Yeah.
It's
3
around that.
years. You know, I know people hold resentment going on with this guy. I don't know what he's talking about. You know, he's lying to you, he's lying to you, Pharaoh. But he didn't do that. You know, he just bared his time and waited. So, but there's more rules and stuff like this. Like I said, they were all used to the Egyptian laws, okay? Because after Joseph's time, they forgot about Joseph. And then they said, well, there are so many Israelites that if they were to team up with our enemies, they'd wipe us out. So they enslaved them. You know, the whole idea of, you know, I got a spear, you don't. Do what I say or I'll stab you. But there's 300 people there. You can't stab 300 people. You know, but people don't look at that, and you know, as a mob to run you over. But so they had all that time, and he goes on to tell them if the man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as a male servant do. If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, then he must let her be redeemed, taken by somebody else. She is to be allowed to be, you know, in a different place. He can't just cast her out.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. And if he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marriage rights. And if he does not provide her with these 3 things, she is to go free without any payment of money. So, that sounds cruel, but, you know,
Again, God brings humanity along at a slow pace. He brought them along at a pace they can understand. Slavery, even later than that, in the Roman Empire, if you wiped out slavery, you would have wiped out the empire.
That's
Over 40% of the population of Rome, the city of Rome, were slaves. And they feared the slave revolt. But God is bringing them along. Now, in any civilized nation, there's no slavery. Okay? So it's slow. God doesn't. I wish God moved quicker sometimes in my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But He does at His own speed. And He reveals Himself both to humanity and to the individual at a pace that we can comprehend, we can compass intellectually as well as experientially.
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do, like, at the very beginning, because, like, if you had your wife, she couldn't have a child. A lot of those guys would go to the servant. She would find somebody for you.
Abraham, Sarah.
So a lot of that stuff, it's almost like it was built to fit in with all the stuff that was
Today,
in all the laws and the rules that he made.
the same thing's done today. If your wife can't bear a child, okay, you can do surrogacy
Yeah.
or whatever.
yeah, that's even changed too. Because originally when they had surrogates, she couldn't keep the child even if she wanted to. She had to bear the child and it belonged to them. Now, if you pay all the medical bills and everything, and she says at the end that she wants to keep it, there's nothing you can do. You know, that would pretty much give me a sore spot in my backside. With my wallet says. But Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together for this discussion and how you, in your ultimate wisdom, bless us so that we may follow you and love you even more. Guide us out of our wrongdoings into the right doings. Thank you in Jesus' name.